Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar, where we'll be going over avoiding contract disputes, streamlining contract management for construction projects. This webinar is brought to you by GRAITEC. My name is Diana Ramirez, and I'm pleased to be your moderator for today. You can find schedule of upcoming events and webinars and training as well on our website at asti.com/calendar. Before we dive over to our webinar, we'd love to learn more about how we can best support you and your business. So if you have a moment, please take some time to answer the poll questions on the right side of your screen. It would help us to learn more on how we can best serve you. We'd also love to invite you to take advantage of our free trial for FileSync or check out our custom training options. You can scan the QR code on the screen, but I will also add these back when the end of the webinar comes and we're on our Q&A session. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat as they come on, and we will ask them at the end of the presentation. Today, I am pleased to introduce our expert, a seasoned BIM specialist with a background in commercial architecture and a deep understanding of architecture workflows, now focused on consulting and training to help firms optimize their BIM processes. With expertise in Revit, AutoCAD, and Autodesk Construction Cloud, they specialize in guiding architects and curtain wall manufacturers and landscape architectures toward more efficient design and collaboration workflows. Thank you so much for joining us today, Emily Moderman. I will turn it over to you now. Oh, I believe you can unmute. Oh.
I did it again for a third time. Okay, I'm back. Thank you. Welcome again from my side of things. I've said this 3 times because apparently I don't know how the mute button works. So welcome everybody. Today we are not talking about anything Revit or curtain wall related. We are talking about build, Autodesk Construction Cloud build and cost. We are going to try and help you avoid contract disputes, streamline some of your workflows within the system, and just give you a little more information about how cost management can help you overall. So let's see, and it's my screen being shared. Excellent. All right. So our agenda today is we're going to start with taking you through how to set up some internal and a little bit of external workflow. We'll talk a little bit about e-signatures and what our options are within cost. We're going to sprinkle in a little single source of truth, discuss some file access information related to the files that are generated in cost, where they're stored and who has access. And hopefully this all helps with the overall goal of improved communication, reduced conflicts, reduced misinformation, and so on overall. So every little bit counts. All right, so that's what we're looking for today. So we'll start with taking a look at streamlining some workflows and what our options are here. So cost management has approval workflows for a number of different aspects. So payment applications, contracts and subcontracts, as well as change orders. So today we're focusing on contracts, which in the Autodesk system really refers to subcontracts and purchase orders, internal or consultant related contracts. So we're not talking about your prime contract SOV. We're talking about typically a downstream scenario here. Mainly for time purposes because there are so many options that we can do. But these workflow setup options can apply if you're thinking, okay, well, I want something to do with my upstream workflows. The settings that we're going to look at are pretty similar. So if you are currently using cost management and you have ever been looking at your template settings, you may have gone through a number of the settings and wondered why. Why would I edit something like, as you can see on my screen here, contract types? So I often go through this workflow with people and they say, why would I need to amend or add new contract types here? So there's 4 out of the box: consultant, internal, purchase order, and subcontract. And everybody pretty much says, okay, well, I use purchase orders and subcontracts. Why would I need internal and why would I need consultant? Okay. Well, I'm not here to answer that question specifically, but in general, if you don't use them, you can deactivate them. But why would you add new ones? Adding new ones can have a couple of knock-on effects. One related to approval workflows, and the other might be related to data collection on the internal side. What do you want to track and record about your own internal operations? Purchase order versus subcontract types of contracts. You want to separate them out. You want to report on them differently. Maybe just figure out, which one contains more problems, or does better for you overall. So that's one reason why I might add new types. And what new types might I add? Well, within, let's say, purchase order and subcontract types themselves, maybe I would like to define purchase orders for different types of work, or materials purchase order versus an equipment rental purchase order. Why might I separate those out? Well, that's up to you, right? So you got to think a little deeper on why, on how many categories you might want. And some of it is for that data reporting. But also, this all relates to the potential for approval workflows and what kind of items I might want to approve and who needs to approve them. So you can see here in green, subcontract is directly related to my second approval workflow here, contract signatures. So for all types of contracts labeled a subcontract, this workflow will kick in. I'll explain what a workflow is in more detail in the next slide. But then you can see that there's other conditions available. So if I have a schedule of values sum of my contract or purchase order being sent, if it's greater than $999,999, so $1 million or greater, basically, then this workflow is going to kick in. Okay, so there's the options to use some of these contract types or not, to create conditional scenarios where it only kicks in a workflow if you have one of these types. If it's a purchase order, it goes to, your procurement manager. If it's a subcontract, it goes to the project manager for an initial review. And then it goes out to the customer. So don't forget about your settings and the details that you can dig up and expand on in your settings. And that all leads to, let's say, setting up an internal workflow. So this is an example of that $1 million or greater type of contract. And now I only had one condition in here, which actually isn't based on a type. Great example, Emily. But I can stack my conditions. So if it is a $1 million purchase order, right, I could add a condition here that defines a $1 million purchase order rather than a $1 million contract, right? Because contracts tend to be for larger values rather than maybe purchase orders are for smaller values. So now if I suddenly have this outstanding purchase order, I may need another set of eyes on it. Okay, so your reasons for an internal workflow or an approval workflow are your own. And this is where discussion with somebody like GRAITEC can help you maybe flesh out what your options are, and help you work through what you can set up for yourselves, okay? So, getting ahead of myself. So now, this is what an internal workflow might look like if you're setting one up. You have a general workflow name, so you can tell which workflow is being initiated. You have conditions, one or more. Some of them could be as simple as every contract. And that would apply to all internal, subcontract, consultant, and anything in that types list we have defined. Otherwise, you can create conditions like this one, stack conditions, and they kick in when a contract meets all of these. Okay? And then down below, we have our steps. Now, this one is a 2-step workflow. We have everything from 1 to 12 level step workflows, plus group workflows. So you could have a group of people involved, and also even within a multi-step workflow that looks like it's kind of one step at a time or one person at a time, this single reviewer option does expand to allow for multiple reviewers. And then you can define whether one out of the 3 project managers on a project has to look at this and approve it, or all of them, or a minimum of 2 out of 5. So you've got some reviewer options here. We define how long they have to look through that workflow, and I'll show you where that shows up later on in the system. But this, isn't just a date that disappears into the ether. It's going to show up on their homepage. And then basically you define who is involved in each step. So the first one, actually this is an old screenshot. This would be a project manager review. And then this one would go to a project executive for their review to finalize that internal workflow. So let's say you have a project engineer or an assistant PM, or maybe just a new person working on the project, and you want to make sure that everybody's confirmed of what is allowed and what can go out and get that final review in. PM takes a look at it at first. They issue it to the next step. The project executive says, okay, yeah, I know it's $1 million, but this looks legit. It looks good. Send it out. Okay, so that's the general idea of a workflow. Now, not to overwhelm you with details, this is what the workflow within the system would look like. A lot of people are very concerned with the status and being able to track the process of that workflow. So where is it now? Right? What am I looking at? So this little symbol right here, pending supplier input submitted, this is the status that the contract is in. So when you look at the main contract screen on your in your cost environment, it's going to tell you exactly what status that's in. Now, when I have a contract, I have 2 options right off the bat. I have send and request supplier input. I've got request supplier input green here because it's obviously highlighted blue by the system, and it's intending this to be your first step. So if I were to click that, it would go out to the subcontractor and put the contract in pending supplier input. The contractor would respond by, let's say, returning schedule of values information, filling it out, or returning a document. Potentially uploading their compliance requirement information, and anything else you might need from them. And then they'll hit respond, and it will come back. And on your side of things, you're going to hit the send button and initiate that internal approval workflow now that you have all of that information from the client. So these first 2 steps, you can make a choice. This is an optional workflow. If you are receiving or have already received this information externally, you're tracking compliance requirements in another software, you already have their schedule of values because it came in from Building Connected, great. We don't have to go through this part of the workflow, and you might be inclined just to hit the send button so that internally you can review what they've provided you. So this is what an approval workflow goes through on the internal side once you hit that send button. Approval workflow step 1 is the project manager review. So let's say the project engineer starts this, they've aggregated all that data, and they're going to hit the send button, and it goes to the project manager. Project manager is going to get an email through the system that says, hey, can you take a look at this? Within cost management, they're going to be able to hit that review button. They're going to review the documents. They're going to review the schedule of values that are listed in this review screen. And at the end of that review screen, they're going to be able to hit proceed or revise. If revise, then it goes back to step 1, and requests further information from, in this case, the project engineer or whoever created it, and they can choose to request a revision of information from the supplier again. Okay, so that status would then read in revision or requested revision, whereas right now it says in review, PM review. So when you customize your workflow, if you have nice and descriptive naming of your workflows, those statuses that you're going to see in the main cost area are going to reflect those review statuses exactly. All right, so we're going to, let's say, review that information. You can make a little comment here. I've reviewed, looks good. If you hit proceed, it's going to go to the next step in that reviewer. It's going to send an email to the executive at this point. It has a customizable email message here. This text is generic, available to be customized in your settings of the project or the project template, but you can always add custom information that is relevant to this situation at the time of sending. So then you'd hit send, and we get kicked into approval workflow step 2. So step 2 is pretty much the same for the next person as it was for this person. It moves us along. We are now in review, executive review. So if the executive takes their time getting to this, everybody will be aware because this status is going to be present in cost management beside that contract. It's going to be, we're waiting on the executive review. And again, I'll show you some other calendar related options within this system later. So that executive is then going to review the documentation. When they are happy with it, they will hit proceed. They can make a comment if necessary. Now, they said please send, but they technically are the one that is going to send this email to the supplier. So at this point, when all of our internal review is done, the send option really kicks in, and now this new email is going out to the supplier. So this would be, let's say, everything is A-OK. Maybe there's a signed copy attached to this, and we're going to send that record copy to the supplier. Okay, so that final person in that step 2 of the workflow is actually the one who is saying, yep, this is sufficient, and this is now going to go out to the supplier, the customer, the owner, whoever you are in the workflow, and whatever that workflow is directed at. So here it's going to go to the subcontractor, send. Now, once it's been sent, it will stay in sent status, but it is essentially ready to be executed. So you can move it from sent to executed at any point. Things can happen between sent and executed, but let's say it's been sent, and now I am ready to execute this contract. So you pop it into the executed status and you're ready to start work on this. So at the end of this workflow, who has access to that documentation? So internal project members on your own team who have the correct permissions to access cost will have access to that information. Every piece of data that's been generated within the flyout of our contract is going to have access, or is going to be accessible to all internal project members. In addition, if you have a subcontractor or, your other party in the system with you, they will also have access. If they have a cost license, they would also have access to any contracts, change orders, anything that has been assigned to them. And of course, this is all permission-based. So if you're worried that suddenly they're going to have access to things you don't want them to, we have permission settings for that. You will set that up as far as folders and cost management modules are concerned. Okay, so these two people right off the bat have access to the cost management, contract, flyout, and all documents generated within that. Now, before I get further into who has access and how, think about somebody out there is going, well, when did the signing of this contract happen? Well, at current, in my head, this currently happens maybe between sent and executed, because previously it was just an internal workflow. we internally received information from the contractor, went through our own checks and balances, and it's been sent to the customer. But we haven't executed yet because we are waiting on e-signature options. Maybe we're waiting for a hard copy to come back, wet signed. There are different options there. So the system has some built-in scenarios for dealing with things like e-signatures. Okay, so e-signature options, if you're looking, if you're thinking, well, I use DocuSign, I use Sign Now, I use Adobe Sign. What are my options? Well, first option, and the option up until literally today, integration via ACC Connect, which is an Autodesk product, or some third-party integrator. There are a number of integrators out there that work with different systems and would be able to help you integrate your current e-signature workflow with Autodesk cost. So that is and was pretty much the only option up until today, like I said. And sometimes this is still the best option. They may offer a more robust integration between your chosen system or e-signature system and cost management. They give you more flexible options and so on. So you can still go that route. And then as of today, we have a few built-in e-signature options. Now, it's not in the doc. The what's new has been released. Today is a release day for a number of ACC features. It is, I can see the options. I can work with some of the options, but for whatever reason, it's not in the new help documentation. So I hope Autodesk doesn't ding me for telling you guys about this yet. But we have some built-in e-signature options now. So in your Autodesk account library, if you go into the settings area, there is now a built-in setting for DocuSign, Adobe Sign, and Sign Now. Looks somewhat like this. You can choose your signature provider, what type of account you're going to be using within the company, and it comes with some default signer roles that are pretty typical. However, you can add signer roles as necessary. Once you add a signer role, or if you want to configure the tags for that, you can manage the fields, but it gives you a general field tag. So this tag gets taken out, and put into your contract document that is being generated within the system. So you would take wherever you need a signature on that contract document, you're going to put in this case, this is for, I believe, this isn't Sign Now. I don't remember what one I had chosen here, but this would be the tag that you put in all of the signature locations in the contract document that you have uploaded to costs. So when you generate that, it's going to know where the signer is supposed to be, and then we can go through the workflow of getting that signed. Right now, this is the part that I cannot get working yet in the system. I am assuming this release is still active and still ongoing for, let's say, this week. So there will be hopefully this send for signature option within. This is sort of legacy. It's been there for a long time for some people. That you may still see it if you had a Sign Now contract or integration from a long time ago. You may still see this, but this is where I'm thinking this is going to be applicable. So you're going to be able to click send for signature, and it'll take this document generated document and go out for signature with that. All right. So don't quote me. This may change. It is released, but maybe not entirely released as of yet. Okay. So those are your e-signature options, whether it's third party or the built-in ones. Go ahead and take a look at that stuff. And, and so I was going to say in between that sent and executed portion. So let's say you go out for supplier input. Your step 2, once you've received that supplier input, you've gathered it, you've aggregated their information, you've built that or generated that documentation, that contract document. now you may be ready to go out for that signature. So before you even hit maybe an internal reviewer, you get that sent for signature. The subcontractor is going to sign it and send it back. And then with that signed subcontract document, your internal workflow kicks in. So maybe now is when I need our internal team to look further at this before we send a record copy out to the subcontractor. All right, lots of workflow options there. Okay, so all of that was pretty much internal. There are no, in these approval workflows, we don't have external people involved. Now, I stumbled across one scenario where we can bring the subcontractor in. Now, there's a few caveats to this because it is, it's not necessarily built for external approval, external approvers to be in this approval workflow, but I found a way. So in the same workflow setup that we had before, my first step, instead of being internal PM, is actually going out to the subcontractor. So it changes what I'm looking for and what I'm sending first, but I would still go through, or I still have to go through the request supplier input. So this is the caveat. You have to request supplier input in order for the next step of the approval workflow to be visible to the subcontractor. If you do not request supplier input in that first stage and you just jump right into send approval and hope for the approval workflow, the subcontractor is not going to have access to this. External parties do not have access to these approval workflows in 99.9% of the case. So I found the 0.1% that we have access to that. So if you request supplier input, you get their input, comes back in, and then you hit the send, the next step could go out to the subcontractor for their review and signature. So at this point, you're sort of shifting to the signature aspect of the approval. So you can go out and say, hey, okay, we've received all your information. We did our part. We aggregated it into the contract document. Now we're ready for you to sign. So let's hit that approval workflow, send it out to them. They're going to hit that review option, and they'll have a copy of that contract document. They're going to download it. They're going to sign it. They're going to upload it. Whether they're wet signing or whether they are e-signing, they're still going to provide you with a signed document before they hit this proceed button. Then it goes back to you on the internal side. You go through your review, you sign it, you seal it, you get your notary involved, whoever needs to be involved, and your proceed will involve you uploading a signed document. And then that last step where we're sending it to the supplier, this really is a record document. This is a signed by both parties scenario going out to the supplier. So this next step of sent to executed could pretty much happen right away because I don't have to stick my signature workflow in between these two. I can execute it because it has already been signed during that workflow. So those workflows can be flexible. There's a little trick to that one, but no, because normally approval workflows are internal only. Now back to our who has access. We're going to talk a little bit about, who has access to documentation so that we can increase our internal and external visibility of documents. So everybody has access to the same source of truth. Okay, hopefully this is going to improve communication, improve accountability because everybody is seeing the same thing. Nobody's saying, oh, I'm looking at version 3 and I should be looking at version 4. So in the build system in general, we have a folder structure that is defined when you set the system up. You say, where are my folders and what are they, who has permissions to them? Each one of these folders would have something defining who can access it. But within cost management then, normally when we generate documents within cost management, they're stored simply within the flyout. I keep going like this because it's usually a kind of a sidebar in our system. And And so this is my, my symbol for it in my head. But within our settings, our general settings of a project related to cost management, we have a documents and attachments area that says, hey, all of the documentation recorded or generated in my flyout, in my contract, my change orders, my main contracts, all of that documentation is going to be stored somewhere in my file system. So here it's going to my financial record documentation, and we have the ability to grant my subcontractor, my owner, whoever I'm dealing with in this transaction, view, download, and upload permissions to that particular folder automatically. They will not see anything in the tree above that. They will see project files and their accessible folder. Okay, so that's terrific. And then within that, they can see any of the information. So we've generated 3 contracts with them. They have access to all these folders and all of the documentations within that. Okay, everything that they upload, if it's obviously uploaded with the same name, counts towards a new version, and all versions are accessible. Anything you see with blue text is a link and will have something in the system. It will either take you to a list of versions or a link to the original version, depending on what you click on. If you're concerned with, what if they delete, or what if they do not have delete options, but that would depend on permissions. So in this case, they do not have delete options for this folder structure, just view, upload, and create, or download, sorry. And all folders and files have a list of file activities. So I went directly to this Atrium Roof Blinds PDF. So this might be the signed contract that I end up with at the end. And we can see who viewed it, who has uploaded it, and this list goes on. So from the initial creation or upload of that file, I can track everything about that file, who, what, where, when, why. And so this is you can export this if necessary. You can filter it if this list is really long. It also shows you if there are any current private or public markups on this. Okay, so file activities is available for anything you're concerned about. Now, still along the improved visibility scenario, I have a lot of people that consistently tell me, we're not going to bring our owner, our subcontractor, who knows, we're not going to bring them into the system with us just yet. They're just starting off. We'll wait till we understand the system, then we'll bring them in. Or they will never understand the system, and we will never bring them in because that is too much work or too much hassle. Who knows? We can still, our goal is to still track this information in the system, right? I want to know when I go to my contract with that person, where did the information come from? Where are the files being stored? What is being stored that was not directly created or uploaded into the contract information internally? Maybe they have access to docs and they uploaded a file, but how does that file make it back into, I don't know, right? What if we email information back and forth? Well, the correspondence tool is a great scenario for this. If you have someone that you communicate with that only uses docs or does not use Build at all, that doesn't matter. Each project has a unique correspondence ID. It's an email address. So even if you're sending an email through Outlook or Gmail, you can copy and paste this in your email to them. And when they reply, their replies will be tracked in correspondence. So if you need to step outside of the cost send approval workflow, make sure you consider the correspondence option. Whether you send internally or externally from the Build system, that unique identifier for that project email is still a great idea to attach to all your emails. So you can send that information. You can, when they reply, they can reply via their Gmail. They can include attachments that will be tracked within the system. Each revision of a document that is replied to, if they keep the same name, will become a new revision or a new version in the cost system. And all versions are still available to you. Okay, it looks a little like this. All the replies will be sort of stored under one ongoing email. And you can see that there are attachments. And when I go back into cost management, I can choose to reference that email chain in my contract document. Now, adding a reference here, when I add references to items in build or cost, we have this option to take the attachments, let's say, that are attached to an RFI or an issue, and pull them into my cost management information, so right into the contract attachments. However, with cost, if I have an email that has gone back and forth, it's got a signed contract to it, I can't link that reference. So if anybody is interested in helping improve the system, this QR code, take a quick screenshot. The link is also up here. I know you can't click that. You could screenshot it. There's an ideas forum idea. So we can, if we attach a correspondence to our contract and you would like to pull those email attachments forwards via the add from linked references option, go upvote this idea and maybe Autodesk will take a hint. So otherwise right now, I would have to just link those documents directly from Autodesk Docs. I would say attach from Autodesk Docs. I would go back to my, actual contract folder. I would find the documents that were uploaded or came through correspondence attachments, and I would build them into my attached references here. So, all right. Now, I think we have a few minutes left. I just want to talk about what some of their indicators are to help us reduce these delays and misunderstandings and missed deadlines. So within cost management, on the home screen, we have a few indicators of what is ongoing and what might be overdue. So at the beginning, in our workflow, we were able to say, let's say for each step of the workflow, how many days they have to review it. So 5 work days, 3 work days is when those responses for each step was required. Now, in your homepage in cost management, you will have a reviews area. So if you are part of a review, you will see that this workflow has been initiated and what that overall due date is. When this becomes overdue, I believe this turns red, and it should turn red here, or it will say overdue. And so you also have this calendar announcement here. Within a week, I have 2 items due on the 22nd, so they show up here as requiring a response. Now, that response may not be you. So if you're not the reviewer here, that's okay. That doesn't mean it's on you, but it is on you to maybe go in and remind someone that they need to be completing that review. As of right now, there are no automated reminder emails. Here's another ideas forum link. If you screenshot this QR code, you can check it out. This was not created by me, but this is in there for RFI and submittal automatic reminders. But I was just piggybacking on this because I think it would be terrific for contract related or cost related reminders as well. All right, so screenshot that. And finally, we're coming to the end of our 45 minutes here. We'll have some Q&A after this. If you're thinking, well, I've got all this information going back and forth in cost management, what about accounting? I just want to talk about briefly about an integration that we work with, an integrator that we work with. It's Agave Sync. The name is growing out there. Everybody's kind of heard of them. And they can just help you with taking the information that's in cost management and moving it back and forth between Autodesk Build and whatever accounting system you might be using. Okay, so the number of accounting systems that are supported is growing. I don't know what you're using, but definitely make that inquiry if you're looking at connecting your systems. So as far as what is going to move, this is a bit of a sample, but it's pretty representative of what typically goes in which direction. So if you're thinking, okay, well, what can move? Some items are going to move one direction only. Nothing is bi-directional, moves from build into an accounting software, right? Something like contracts, subcontracts would be generated on the build side and move into the accounting software. And then other information is going to be starting on the accounting side and move into Autodesk Build. So something like expenses, this seems to be across the board static. We only go in one direction, so no matter which system you're using, expenses are going to start in the accounting software and move over into the expenses on the build side of things. So that's just an example of the directionality in one set of data. Okay, so if you're curious, get in touch with your reseller, GRAITEC. We work with Agave, but there are other integrators out there. And, well, let's get you synced and let's get all your information moving. Let's work on streamlining all of your workflows, making sure everybody knows who's got what information and when. All right, I think that takes us to the end, so we're ready for some Q&A. Hopefully this was helpful. We are always looking for new topics, so please let us know if it was helpful, if it wasn't, and what you would like to see in the future. Diana, should I turn it over to you?
Yeah, thank you, Emily, for walking us through that. Again, we want to open it up for Q&A, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them on that chat and we will answer them for you. In the meantime, I will bring up back that screen where it has some QR codes to some free trials as well as more information on training services that we offer. So let me just pull this up here.
And while she's doing that, I just wanted to say for anybody who is interested in training or consultation work, we have a great team here at GRAITEC. We work with integrators. We will work with you to figure out the best plan for you to integrate, to start with cost management and build. We have a great training scheme and then help you through any integrations that you're working with. So ask those questions, get involved, and hopefully we can provide you with some helpful information and get you a good training session. So training, I want to say for cost management is definitely recommended. It's more complex than I think people are going to give it credit for. There's a lot of setup and a lot of customization. Don't let me scare you with a lot of setup. It's the customization that we can do to really make this system yours, to get your custom documentation in there. There's a lot you can do to make it your own system and make it work the way you want. Now, I don't see any questions yet, so
Nope.
Of course. Oh, do I? Do you?
I don't see any questions on my end. No.
Sounds good.
Yes, I think we can wrap it up. And again, the training sounds amazing opportunity. Make it your own system. So if you want, definitely scan that QR code that's going to be on the right-hand side that says training. But other than that, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. We appreciate you spending your time with us and trust it was meaningful and impactful for you and your business. And we look forward to seeing you all in a future webinar. So hope you have a good day.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Have a good one.